I'm Dr. John Gartner.
And I'm Dr. Harry Segal.
And welcome to another preview of Shrinking Trump.
On this week's episode, we take a deep dive into the grand cover-up of the Epstein case, which Trump's White House and DOJ are trying to pull off. But we also take a long focus at the way in which Trump's dementia keeps giving us more and more examples. It happens every week, doesn't it, John?
Yes, it does. And that's here at Trump Dementia Central. We keep you informed.
We also this week have an expert on trauma, Matt Ditty, who's back again for his second appearance on the show. And he's really terrific. He even shared some ways in which he is trying to turn Trump voters one at a time.
The other thing that I want to keep people, abreast of is that Donald Trump is continuing to show accelerating cognitive decline, and the press is continuing not to cover it. Okay. Last week, actually, Lori Weiner on our show made us aware of a piece of tape that we hadn't seen from last week. So this is a week old, but I still wanted to show it to you. This is where Trump is claiming that the Unabomber took classes at MIT with his uncle, John Trump.
Okay, show it. Just show it. Don't tell what's going to be in it. They've got to see it if they haven't heard about it.
Okay, here's the tape.
Although my uncle was at MIT, one of the great professors, 51 years, whatever, he was the longest serving professor in the history of MIT, 3 degrees in nuclear, chemical, and math. That's a smart man. Kaczynski was one of his students. Do you know who Kaczynski was? There's very little difference between a madman and a genius. But Kaczynski, I said, what kind of a student was he, Uncle John, Dr. John Trump? He said, what kind of a student? And he said, seriously good. He said he'd go around correcting everybody, but it didn't work out too well for him.
So on Tuesday, the president told a very detailed story about his uncle, noted scientist John Trump, and Theodore Kaczynski, the late Unabomber. He said that Dr. Trump taught Ted Kaczynski. Ted Kaczynski was not identified as the Unabomber until 1996, 11 years after John Trump passed away. It would have been impossible for John Trump to have ever discussed the Unabomber with the president. So what was he talking about? And I have one follow-up.
Andrew, with so many issues going on in the world, I'm a little bit surprised you would ask such a question, although I'm not sometimes coming from you, I will say, but I'm willing to give you an answer. Nevertheless, the president's uncle did, in fact, teach at MIT. He was a very intelligent professor. The president's very proud of his family. In fact, the president has a letter from his uncle on the MIT letterhead that sits in the Oval Office dining room. Maybe we'll let you see it sometime.
Carolyn Levitt is among those people for whom I have enormous contempt. Who I just truly despise. Here she is sounding so superior and contemptuous when she's so clearly not answering the question that, insulting our intelligence. He couldn't possibly have talked. And by the way, the other thing that Carl didn't mention is the Unabomber didn't go to MIT. So he couldn't have been in John Trump's class. They couldn't have discussed the Unabomber. And, but, I'm surprised you would ask with all these important things. And, but I'll answer it. His uncle did teach at MIT and he's very proud of him. No one's questioning whether his uncle taught at MIT. That wasn't the question. We all know that wasn't the question.
See, I'm speechless. She's turned me into Harpo Marx. I want to take a horn and go.
Want to hit people horn every time she lies.
I mean, it's just so horrible, and she just sits there not answering the question. But can we just point out that Trump tells the story with such confidence, like a reminiscence. Hey,
yes,
Uncle John, what was he like? What was Ted Kaczynski like? And notice he said there's a fine line between a madman and genius. Who is he really talking about?
Well,
Right.
that's a good point. Could be a projection. But you're right. He elaborates in the story. He said he was correcting everyone, but that didn't go so well. This is really, and this is important for people to understand, this is how people with dementia talk. It's called confabulation. You take little pieces of things that you remember, that you know, and you weave them, not the kind of weave that Trump tries to present as some act of genius, but in a more kind of primitive, gummed way, gumming things together way. You sort of you remember things that didn't happen. Right. You
Right.
remember stories that you're actually creating in your head to fill in the blanks. And this is the kind of story. And a lot of times we've said, well, how do you know if he's just lying because he's such a liar? Well, if he's lying about Jeffrey Epstein, right, you got to believe he's lying to lie. Right. If he's making up a bizarre, rambling story that's not really benefiting him in any way, it's just sort of a casual reminiscence. That's dementia.
It
That's
is.
dementia,
And
folks.
but what you see, that pleasure on his face, we've
Yeah.
seen this before. He loves talking about his brilliant uncle who was a professor at MIT
Mhm.
because it confirms what he's also called the racehorse theory of
Mhm,
human beings.
mhm.
That is, everything that's good about us is genetically determined. It allows him to say, I come from this great man, so
Sure,
I'm a
sure.
genius too. I'm a
Sure.
genius too. And he gets that dreamy, faraway look, my uncle, and we talked about it. And you're right, confabulation. And what some people, clinicians, have talked about is that with dementia, the associations are tangential, but they're not
Mhm.
random, right?
Mhm,
So he has a
mhm.
good feeling about Uncle John. And then he begins to believe that Ted Kaczynski went to MIT, which he didn't. He went to Harvard. And then it's almost like dream work. It's almost like the part of us that creates dreams at night. They're not
Mhm.
random, but there are stories
Mhm.
about ourselves. It's like it
Mhm.
fills in the gaps with
Fills in the gap.
dreamlike connections.
Yeah, yeah, right. So his reality is becoming dreamlike, which
Yes.
is really very terrifying because, he might not know the difference between a dream and reality when he does something really, really dire and impulsive,
Even when that's cold, hard, and blue.
especially when it's cold, hard, and blue. Jesus.
Can't make it up.
Well, we're not done, folks.
Keep going. I think you have a couple more, John. Let's see.
Yeah, I got a couple more. So, Harry, I don't know if you knew this, but think tanks are a really important thing, and actually, it began with people having to go into tanks. Actually, think in tanks.
And he has these think tanks, and they build buildings for people that think. And it's really not thinking; it's a little bit of combination of thinking, but it's something you sort of have or you don't have. They don't. The job he's done is just terrible.
It's something you do or you have or you don't have.
Yeah,
That made no sense.
it makes no sense. It's just it's a string of words that kind of relate to intelligence or ideas or something.
But Johnny, he got lost in there.
Yeah.
He actually got
Yeah.
lost for a second and recovered, didn't he?
Right. Absolutely.
You think there, and they think what they sort of thought, but it's something you either have or you don't.
Right. Right.
No sense, right?
Right. No transition. No sense whatsoever. Now, one of the things that we have been railing about, and I think railing is a good word, is that the press is not covering these blatant signs of dementia, with an exception. Okay. Unfortunately, it's not an American newspaper, but the Irish Independent and also in the UK, the Mirror, have been covering these blatant signs of dementia. So here is the Irish Independent's headline about the piece of tape that we just saw. Donald Trump dementia fears spike as president claims think tanks are in actual tanks. The U.S. president has sparked further concern over his cognitive abilities following a press conference in the Oval Office. President Donald Trump appeared to suggest that think tanks involved physical tanks in a mind-blowing statement Tuesday that has again raised concerns about whether he has dementia. Yes, they use the word dementia. Earlier this month, an expert noted a crucial sign that President Trump's cognitive ability was aging along with him. Dr. John Gartner, speaking to a radio host, Dean Obadiah, said the president's worsening mental condition was visible. I'm just offended, Harry. They called me an expert and not an acclaimed psychologist in this article. Remember last time we were discussing my acclaim and whether we acclaimed each other, but but they're reporting on it, for God's sake. Thank God. But I mean, think about, the exception proves the rule. Here's this one little newspaper in Ireland that's actually paying attention to these gross signs of cognitive slippage.
No, we're back to calling out in the wilderness and saying, look. And it's just not being covered. The press now just sort of says, hey, that's weird.
Yeah.
Like, oh, look, he made up something. Well, people don't make up things like that without mental issues. Right,
exactly. You're right, Harry. We are voices crying in the wilderness. I think that's true, and the wilderness has gotten bigger since he was elected. Let's see another one of his demented statements.
Okay.
1/5, 1/2. It's a tremendous difference. And this is for the people in this room, because this is something that nobody else can do. We're going to get the drug prices down, not 30 or 40%, which would be great, not 50 or 60. No, we're going to get them down 1,000%, 600%, 500%, 1,500%. Numbers that are not even thought to be achievable, because I've used a certain talent that I have and convinced the drug companies that you have no choice. The drug companies...
Harry, not only are these numbers not thought to be achievable, they're not actual numbers. There is no such thing as reducing something by 1,500%. Once you've reduced it by 100%, it's zero. So what would that mean to reduce it by 1,500%? Are they going to pay me $150 to buy my Lipitor? I don't understand.
I know I'm going to finally get money for all the meds that I have to take. I'm really excited.
This would be a big boon for us senior citizens, because we buy a lot of drugs. So I'm glad they're going to be paying me now to take all these medications.
1,000% at least, John. 1,000%.
At least, because no one else could do it. They thought it wasn't achievable.
And again, this is a little crazy.
It's a little crazy.
It really is. But
it really is.
But he speaks with such confidence that the press isn't really thinking about what it means to say crazy things with confidence.
Mm-hmm.
It confuses them, I think.
I forget who this quote is attributed to, but they said, if you're not sure of the pronunciation of a word, say it loudly.
Yeah, no, that was old Professor Strunk from Strunk and White's Elements of Style. If you don't know how to pronounce a word, say it loudly. He's right about that, because if you don't know how to say something,
I think I'm a great example of that, because I'm mispronouncing words all the time. So you see, it works. Not really, because then people in the comments always tell me I'm always pointed out. Lastly, in the dementia news, okay, part of dementia is losing your memory. Okay, and I don't mean things like not being able to come up with a name, but really forgetting like major stuff. Here is some videotape where he is railing against Biden for appointing Jerome Powell, who he's mad at now because he won't be a rubber stamp and a puppet for the interest rate slashes that he'd like to use to juice the economy. He's actually trying to act like an independent Federal Reserve chairman, and that's driving Trump crazy. And he wants to fire him, but then people are saying, no, but then the stock market will crash, so don't fire him. So, okay. So here he is railing against Jerome Powell and railing against Biden for appointing him.
People wanting to get a mortgage. People want to buy a house. He's a terrible Fed chair. I was surprised he was appointed. I was surprised, frankly, that Biden put him in and extended him. As president, there are a few decisions more important than nominating leaders of integrity and good judgment to hold trusted positions in public office. And few of those trusted positions are more important than the chairman of the Federal Reserve. Accordingly, it is my pleasure and my honor to announce my nomination of Jerome Powell to be the next chairman of the Federal Reserve. Congratulations, Jay.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I mean, this is a dementia level memory loss. This is not a small thing, right?
Mm-mm.
But, you know, we just keep glossing over it. Just keep on trucking.
Well, he's so confident.
That's right. And the press seems to be so oblivious. Unless you
Agreed.
work for the Irish Independent. So hats off to the Irish Independent, but thumbs down for everybody else.
Yeah, a tip of the hat to the Independent.
Exactly. Well, you know, that's one thing you love about the Irish, right? They'll tell you off. They'll tell you what they think. That's one of the things I love about them.
Fantastic culture. Really is. Just wonderful.
Yeah.
Hey, John, you know, I talk a lot about Pam Bondi in disparaging terms, and you know, kind of like little Mikey Johnson. I find her so despicable, but I had some sympathy for her this week because she's in a rather impossible position, right? The MAGA base had believed her when she said that she had the client list of Jeffrey Epstein. She said it on Fox News. But now that the administration is moving forward and they've discovered that Trump is all over those files, now she has to say no to the base to protect Trump. And it's really, she's in an impossible position, isn't she?
Yeah. It's an impossible mission. It's an impossible MAGA mission. You could think of it as a mission impossible.
And in fact, she's been given a mission impossible mission, right? And it turns out, not only was she given this mission by audio file, but Pete Hegseth actually accidentally posted it to Signal, and because you and I are still on his list, we actually snagged it. So, folks, here is the mission that was given to Pam Bondi just the other day.
Your mission, Pam, should you decide to accept it, will be to cover up President Trump's deep involvement with Jeffrey Epstein, child rape, and sex trafficking. To accomplish this mission, you will need to obtain the FBI Epstein files, scour through million pages for weeks, around the clock, and delete any references to Trump. Inside your briefcase, you will find 20 bottles of whiteout and some ketamine to help you dissociate from the lurid details you'll be exposed to. Next, you must continue to exert leverage over Mikey Johnson with his Covenant Eyes history, the app he shares with his son. Besides Christian porn, he's recently gotten into Muslim MILFs. Finally, after insisting on a private meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell, threaten to use those AI images of her having sex with Hillary Clinton and say, you're concerned she might, quote, commit suicide in jail, and that should do the trick. As usual, if you are caught or killed, Doge will deny any knowledge of your actions, and the president will say he hardly knew you. Good luck, Pam. This tape will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
So that's our preview of this week's show. Please don't just watch the preview, watch the whole show. It's called Shrinking Trump. You can find us on the Really American Network, or you can just search for us on YouTube for Shrinking Trump. Our new show streams every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And after that, you can download it or watch it anytime you like. We're also an audio podcast. You can listen to us on Spotify or on Apple Music, especially if the guy who is supposed to post it actually posts it. But you can find it on Spotify and Apple Music or wherever you get your podcasts. Please, we hope to see you there.
See you there.